Good morning, good afternoon to the East Coast customers, and good evening to our customers in Europe. Thank you for attending the DataON June webinar, and we have a very exciting presentation lineup for you today for the webinar. So the title of our webinar today is Elevate Your Windows Server Experience with Windows Admin Center, MUST, and Mellanox. And we have a very exciting speaker list here. We will have Daniel Lee from Microsoft, who will share the new Windows Admin Center solution that Microsoft had launched in early May. We have Jeff Chow from Mellanox, who will go through the portfolio of Mellanox, how they're really embracing the Windows world. We have a customer who have recently made the Microsoft choice, Sean Leonard from Trident Seafood, to share his experience about working with Windows. And myself, Howard Lowe from DataON. I'll kind of wrap it up a little bit after I do a quick introduction. So for agenda today, I will start with the overview, followed by Daniel, talk about Windows Admin Center, Jeff, Sean, then I'll wrap it up. If we have some time in the end, we'll take Q&A. All the information you could type into the screen, and we'll filter them and try to answer them as accordingly. Some housekeeping items. Make sure you're muted during the webinar. All the chat windows open for questions. We'll respond and take them down. If we don't get to them, we'll email you directly. And here are all the social media hashtags that you could have if you need to reach us via social media. So let me get started real quick in terms of the Windows. As you know, DataON is really a Microsoft vendor that's really focused on delivering Windows-based solutions. We're very excited that we're seeing a great momentum with Windows, especially the recent Gartner report early this year, which really now position Microsoft as prime time for the hyper-converged infrastructure world. With storage spaces direct really becoming mainstream, we're seeing customers really making the choice now of choosing Microsoft as their deployment solution. And given that with Azure Cloud and everything else, we really see that customers are embracing Microsoft and Windows Server 2016 and future as their primary production storage. And as a visionary, we really foresee Microsoft really become a really significant player in the hyper-converged market. From the DataON perspective, we're very excited that we continue to grow our customer base. We have now 650 unique Windows Server deployments based on storage spaces as a foundation. For 2016, we have now over 150 petabytes with the data deployed in the marketplace. To make sure we're there, we're very focused on making sure our hardware platform are certified based on Windows. In addition, making sure we work closely with Microsoft to have our Windows software defined turnkey solution ready for our customer if they chose to deploy Windows based on the solution, and DataON here to help. With that, I will want to make sure that you see the momentum we're getting and all the different deployment we have on different nodes in Gal File Server. It's been a very exciting time with new technology, and we want to make sure we continue that momentum. With that, I'd like to introduce Daniel Lee from Microsoft, which will take you through their Windows Admin Center. Here you go, Daniel.
Thank you, Howard. Hi, everyone. I'm Daniel Lee. I'm a program manager on the Windows Admin Center team at Microsoft. And today I'd like to talk a little about Windows Admin Center in general, and then dive a little deeper into the hyper-converged infrastructure management experience within Windows Admin Center. And then lastly, talk about the ecosystem and extensibility within Windows Admin Center and the collaborative work we've been doing with DataON. So in case you're not familiar with Windows Admin Center, you've probably at least used a lot of these tools on Windows and Windows Server. They've been around for the last 10, possibly even 20 years, and unfortunately, a lot of them haven't changed for a long time. Well, we're changing that with Windows Admin Center, the evolution of server inbox management tools for Windows Server. So I'll give you a quick peek at some of the tools just to give you a sense of what it's like. When you can install Windows Admin Center on Windows 10 or Windows Server 2016, launch it up in your web browser, and when you connect to a server locally or remotely, this is the first screen that you get. I'm connected to SME Host, a server named SME Host, and then this is the overview page on Windows Admin Center. You can see the important information properties at the top in the overview pane, and underneath that you have the metrics for CPU, memory, and network underneath. On the left-hand side, you can see a list of 20 or so tools. I'll quickly just go through them to give you a sense of what they're like. This is the Certificate Manager within Windows Admin Center, Device Manager, Event Viewer. We have a web browser-based File Explorer. This is for firewall rules, local users and groups, network configuration, processes, the equivalent of Task Manager. We have Registry Editor, rules and features, services, local storage, Windows Update. And this is a virtual machines dashboard, equivalent of Hyper-V, but we have a dashboard showing some of the host resource usage. And of course, the virtual machines list, so to manage the virtual machines on the Hyper-V host. We also have, and this is the virtual switches, and we also have a web-based PowerShell console for automation and scripting. And lastly, for any reason, if you have to go back to your legacy tools, then there's a web-based remote desktop that you can switch over to bring up those tools and use them. So that's kind of a quick peek at the tools that we have in the Windows Admin Center currently. Windows Admin Center, in a nutshell, it's lightweight. It can be downloaded and installed in under 2 minutes. The UI itself is browser-based using modern web technology, so it's very fast and responsive. It doesn't require an internet connection under this hood. It's just connecting remotely to on-premises to your servers over remote PowerShell and WMI. You can use Windows Admin Center to manage your Windows 10 machines, Windows Server 2012, 2016, and future versions, and we're also adding some limited support for 2008 as well. It's the evolution of familiar inbox admin tools such as Server Manager and NMC, so it's targeted more at managing a single server, a single cluster at a time. It's not a replacement for your other monitoring or alerting solutions. Again, modernized, integrated, you saw all the tools in a very consistent experience. We're bringing in a lot of the modern security improvements, things like Azure AD integration, multi-factor authentication, and then role-based access control based on PowerShell, GIA, just enough administration. It's extensible for first parties within Microsoft, so you'll see a lot of other Microsoft services and products coming into Windows Admin Center, and also for third parties. So as I'll talk later about the integration we've done with DataON. And as I mentioned before, it's primarily for on-premise usage. You don't need an internet connection, but we're also bringing in scenarios for hybrid environments, so and integration with Azure as well. And this is the recommended platform for current and future Windows Server management experiences. We've just announced general availability, so it's now supported in production, and this was announced in April, so just 2 months ago. And moving forward, this will be the default platform for Windows Server management tools. In Windows Admin Center, we're focusing mainly on 3 areas or 3 pillars. The first being a core functionality. The next are hero scenarios. The last being the ecosystem. The core functionality is really about the admin tools that I just showed you, the basic tools that you need for your day-to-day management. And a lot of the investments we're doing here is to bring the toolset up to par with what you've used before, and we're looking towards customer feedback on where we continue to invest. So we have a user voice site. Customers can go in, add feature requests or bug reports, and then as they get voted up, the top the features or that get the top votes are the ones that we prioritize and try to work on first. So this is very user feedback driven. I've showed you the tool, so I won't go in depth into the core functionality. I'd like to move on to the hero scenarios. This is not just reaching parity for the existing tool set that we provided before, but going beyond that and providing additional value add for important scenarios for customers and for Microsoft. So the first, one of the first areas in that area that we're focusing on there is Azure integration for hybrid environments. We know that a lot of customers, even when they have on-premise, they also have Azure workloads, so we're tying those in so that the default toolset that we provide has a lot more Azure integration. And the second is Hyper-Converged infrastructure management, which I'd like to go a little deeper in today. Again, for these hero scenarios, we're going beyond what we had. So instead of a separate compute, storage, and networking tool, we're trying to bring the Hyper-Converged management experience into a single integrated and connected experience. So in Windows Admin Center, instead of just connecting to a single server, you can also onboard and connect to an entire cluster at once. And in this case, when you're connected to a hyper-converged cluster, then this is the first view that you see. It's a dashboard that provides a high-level view of your the resources and performance across your cluster. You can see cluster-wide alerts on the top left. Next to that, you have cluster performance providing historical data for storage metrics such as IOPS, latency, and throughput. Underneath, you can see the CPU memory and storage usage across the cluster. And then to the right of that, you have an inventory view of all the objects and their health status across servers, virtual machines, and other objects that you have on the resources you have running on the cluster. This is a high-level drives view. You can see a summary of the physical drives that you have on your cluster. There's also an inventory tab. If you click through, then you get the list of all your drives with their properties. Similarly, we have the same for volumes. And then for virtual machines, this is something new that we didn't have in Hyper-V Manager, but bringing a host perspective of resource usage across CPU and memory and network from the Hyper-V host and cluster perspective. And if you switch to the inventory tab, similar to all the other objects, you have a list of all your VMs across the cluster. So this is really bringing Hyper-V Manager and Failover Cluster Manager together into a single view. This is the new VM creation flow. So we're making a lot of improvements in the user experience for VM management and storage management, and really optimizing them for IT admin scenarios. So you can see that you have just the right knobs and dials to configure a virtual machine, and instead of the step-by-step wizard, we're trying to simplify it and then provide just what you need. The next area I'd like to talk about is the ecosystem and the extensibility of Windows Admin Center. Our vision from the very beginning was just not to build a tool for the Microsoft toolset, but being able to tie together the monitoring, troubleshooting, and management products that Microsoft provides and our partners provide as well, and building a platform that partners and developers can be involved in and build together. Last month, we just announced the Windows Admin Center SDK as a public preview. For the past 6 or so months, we've been working closely with some of our partners, and we've released the first set of partner extensions last month as well, including the DataON MUST extension, which I'd like to show you. I'll be walking through some of the extension model within Windows Admin Center, how you can install the DataON MUST extension and then start using it. So in Windows Admin Center, there's an Extension Manager UI that you can reach through the settings. And then you can see that we have a feed of that's hosted by Microsoft and a list of extensions that are currently available today. At the top, you can see the DataON MUST extension. Underneath that, you have Fujitsu and Squared Up extensions. And we also have Windows Server Storage Migration Service extension below that. So this is a feed for third-party partners to publish their extensions to. And Microsoft teams are also leveraging it to release extensions for preview features to get early feedback on. So Windows Server Storage Migration is a new service that will be release in Windows Server 2019, so it's still in preview and insider, and the UI for management UI for that is can be downloaded and installed through Windows Admin Center. So here we can click on the DataON MUST extension and click install. It'll install the extension and refresh the UI. It'll probably take about 10-20 seconds, so it's very quick. And once you have that, let's say you're connected to, in Windows Admin, connected to a server that happens to be a DataON cluster node, Hyper-Converged cluster node. As before, you see the overview page for that server. You can use all the tools that Windows Admin Center provides. But if you look on the left-hand side, underneath Overview and Certificates, there's a DataON MUST extension that is now available since you've installed the extension. And when you click on that, then you get the DataON MUST UI that DataON provides embedded within Windows Admin Center. And this already provides a good amount of value for customers, right? Because in the past, if you're looking in Windows Admin Center at a server and you wanted to look at some of the additional data that DataON MUST provide, then you have to open another browser tab, launch DataON MUST, and then navigate to that cluster and drill into the server to see that. But since Windows Admin Center and this, the DataON MUST extension share the context of which server you're on, once you switch over to the DataON MUST extension, then you're already in the context of that of the server that you were just looking at. So it saves you just a few steps there already. And then if you go to, I think this is really amazing. The hardware mapping, the disk mapping that DataON MUST provides is something that Microsoft would never be able to provide, and this gives you insight into more of the hardware details. And again, as I was talking about before, this is really bringing the ecosystem of the platform together, not just building a set of tools for Microsoft services, but also enabling scenarios for IT admins where you can have full insight into your hardware, OS, features and roles, and applications and services on top of that, right? So it's bringing all this together. So that's to sum up. If you haven't, please try out Windows Admin Center. It's relatively new, but this is probably the fastest growing server management tool in Microsoft history. In just 2 months, we're seeing about 75,000 downloads and installations from customers and 1 million Windows Server nodes being managed. We're continuously updating and providing monthly updates. Since last month, later this month, we'll probably have a new update released, which has additional features such as showing the PowerShell script of the features that we're running, so you can look at the scripts and then automate it and use it across multiple machines. We're bringing in software-defined networking for hyper-converged clusters. We're adding some limited support for Windows Server 2008 servers. And then a highly requested feature, scheduled task management, is coming in as well. And again, Hyper-Converged is an area that we're really investing highly in. Hyper-V and storage spaces direct management, where you will see a lot of improvements in the next few months, and we're really targeting for fall this year to have a production-ready feature set so that you can start using the HCI UX within Windows Admin Center for your production environment. And also, as I mentioned, storage-defined networking will be coming in as well. Third, if you haven't, if you're using the DataON MUST, then please try out the extension. We're working closely, Microsoft and DataON is working closely to make some big improvements over the next few months, so stay tuned and please try it out. And lastly, the Windows Server Summit. This is a half-day virtual online-only webcast that the Windows Server team at Microsoft is hosting. This is on June 26th, so 3 weeks. I think it's a Tuesday, and this will be online. And some of our Windows Server experts will be presenting and sharing some of the new things in Windows Server, tips and tricks, and best practices. So ak.ms/WS Summit. And I hope you can join online if possible, and if not, then we will also have recordings available afterwards. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Jeff.
Thank you, Daniel. Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Xiao, Director of Ethernet Alliances at Mellanox Technology. As discussed, software-defined storage and hyper-converged infrastructure have become mainstream in modern data centers. So in this section, I will discuss how this trend impacts the network infrastructure in the data centers and how Mellanox Ethernet storage fabric provides transparent networking to help fully realize the benefits of software-defined storage and hyper-converged solutions such as Microsoft DataON HCI. So the traditional data centers are mostly built on thin storage made of big boxes. These big boxes are proprietary, expensive, and very complex to deploy and manage. The sandbox is also very expensive to scale. If you need to add storage, and if your existing sandbox is fully populated, you have no choice but buy another expensive sandbox. As data volumes grow exponentially, the same becomes the bottleneck in your data center. So therefore, people are now moving away from the SAN storage and migrating to software-defined storage or HCI that is built on a cluster of off-the-shelf x86 servers. And in this cluster, the resources are pooled, workloads are distributed, and resulting in a constant data transfer between these nodes as well as the east-west traffic. So then the question comes up as how to connect these servers to the main network. Can you simply connect them to the existing three-tier main network? The simple answer is no. The reason is that with the three-tier network, it's shared and oversubscribed. So when you put your internode storage fabric on this oversubscribed network, especially if you consider the bursty nature of the storage IOs, the network could be congested and bottlenecked, and your storage traffic would be then underserved. So things could go even much worse if you use faster storage like NVMe SSDs. Let me click on this. And to overcome these challenges, you need to have a dedicated network fabric connecting these servers and running the east-west traffic in the software-defined storage or hyper-converged cluster. And we call this fabric Ethernet Storage Fabric, or ESF in short. Based on the leaf-spine architecture, this dedicated network delivers guaranteed high performance for the internode communication or the east-west traffic. As shown in this diagram, the communication between any two nodes travels at most 3 hops and resulting low consistent latency. The ESF is also easy to scale and cost-effective. If there's not enough switch ports, the fabric can be easily expanded by adding additional top-of-rack or aggregation switches without the need to buy a big modular chassis switch. And you may wonder why it has to be Ethernet, right, not fiber channel. So today, the mainstream Ethernet runs up to 100 gig, very soon 200 gig or even 400 gig, whereas the fiber channel tops at 32 gig. Ethernet can support block, file, object storage, and easily integrate with cloud, whereas fiber channel mostly commonly support block-based SAN storage running in a silo. But more importantly, Ethernet is the de facto interconnect in the data centers. So with Ethernet, you can build a single unified network infrastructure for your entire data center, so which is a lot more cost-effective. The key components of ESF are leaf-spine switches because they construct the data transport for software-defined storage or hyper-converged. They need to be high performance and resilient, providing guaranteed continuous data access. To avoid expensive operation costs, the ESF switch must be simple to deploy config, very easy to monitor and troubleshoot, and also because it's part of the software-defined infrastructure, these switches need to be easily integrated with software-defined storage or hyper-converged to provide automation. And of course, they need to be highly scalable and cost-effective. So it's obvious that not every data center switch can meet these requirements, and only ESF switches, such as Mellanox Spectrum switches, can fill the bill. So here we highlight some advantages of Mellanox Spectrum switches from the write port count for your storage rack to zero packet loss with superb performance, and RoCE optimization for your fast storage to network automation. And we will discuss these in detail in the next few slides. So for some of you who are not familiar with Mellanox, I'd like to give you a very quick complete overview. And Mellanox is a proven leader in the networking solutions for high performance computing. In fact, we dominate that market space with InfiniBand solution. And we applied the same technology know-how to Ethernet for data centers and clouds. Today, Mellanox offers a complete end-to-end Ethernet portfolio from network adapter cards to switches to cables and transceivers. So leveraging many generations of product development in high-performance computing, Mellanox built its switches on its own ASIC, whereas most switches from other vendors on the market are built on general-purpose merchant silicon. And that is where the unique advantage of Mellanox switches come from. So if you see the graphs on this slide, where we see that the Mellanox switch provides zero packet loss, across the speed and, regardless of any of, the frame size you configure. It also delivers very consistent and low latency from port to port, around 300 nanoseconds. Again, regardless of speed and frame size. And because we use a dynamically shared buffer for all the switch ports, so you will see that we have a better capability to do microburst absorption because you have a larger buffer available to all the ports. And also because we have a dynamic shared buffer, so only the ports that is busy processing I/Os can get access to the entire buffer pool. So which results in a fair distribution of performance across the switch ports and give you a predictable QoS for your network. So in comparison, the red bar basically showing what other switches will do in these categories, and obviously they fare badly in these aspects. And these capabilities are imperative for storage and hyper-converged use cases, are required for ESF switches that we have discussed earlier. And all these comparisons are done by a well-known independent test lab called Tory Group. You can find the complete report at the URL I'm showing here. So next, I show you the complete portfolio of Mellanox special switches. So on the left, we have the SN2010, which is ideal top-of-rack for storage and hyper-converged. It has 18 native 1025 gig ports and half with 1 RU form factor, so you can put two of them side by side for HA. And if you need more than 18 10 gig ports, or let's say you need 40 or 100 gig downlinks with the same half width form factor, you can go with our SN2100 switch, which has 16 ports supporting from 10 gig up to 100 gig. If you need more ports, you can use a breakout cable to break each of these physical ports into 4, either 10 or 25 downlinks. And then if you need to have more native 10 gig or 25 gig switch ports for downlinks, and we have a high port count version, the SN24 for that purpose. And finally, the SN2700 are typically used for spine as the aggregation switch. It has 32 ports running from 10 gig up to 100 gig. Then the other thing worth mentioning is that all our switches are open platform switches. You can have choice of either running Mellanox OS is Onyx or Cumulus Linux as your networking operating system. And very soon we're going to add Microsoft Onyx support on the switch as well. So here I give you a little details about why SN2010 is the ideal switch for hyper-converged, because the typical hyper-converged rack contains between 3 to 12 or 16 nodes. And so if you buy a 48 plus 4 or 48 plus 6 switch, you end up only use 1/3 of the switch ports, which is a very low utilization. So with the 2010, you have 18 ports that really fit into the hyper-converged rack, with the 3 to 12 nodes. And it's also very flexible. If you have not used the ports, you can use the 1 gig transceiver we're showing here to connect your 1 gig management port to the switch, which is going to eliminate a separate management switch for your management network. And also this, the form factor I already mentioned is very unique half-width form factor. You can have 2 of them side by side for HA. And finally, as we put here, it's a very low power switch, and you running the full speed on all the ports, it will give you 57 watts for a single switch. So we switched the gear a little bit. So as we all know, the optimal performance of scale-out infrastructure can only be achieved when the performance of the remote data access is very close to a local data access. RDMA over Converged Ethernet, or RoCE, is the best technology for that. So with fast flash storage or I/O-intensive applications, the benefits of RoCE are even more pronounced. And Mellanox, with years of experience in InfiniBand and HPC or high-performance computing, has the most mature RoCE solution, delivers the best performance. The Mellanox network adapter card using DataON servers do hardware RoCE for acceleration as well as for CPU offload, which yields a significant improvement in application performance and server utilization. So on the switch fabric side, Mellanox Spectrum switches provide the best congestion management with the dynamically shared buffer and superior buffer management. Here is an example where there's 3 servers sending data to 1 receiver, where you have a potential source for congestion. In this comparison, the graph shows the pulse time on each sender due to the pulse sent out by the switch. Obviously, the more pulse time you have, the more congestion and higher bandwidth degradation for your application. So here in the graph, you can see that virtually there's no pulse time with Mellanox switches, and you have up to 20% pulse time with the other switch. And the problem will get even worse if you have more than 4 nodes. So we have talked about the importance of having automated network management. Mellanox network orchestration management software, we call it NEO, provides end-to-end network automation for deployment, monitoring, and troubleshooting. Operations such as MLAC configuration, like RoCE configuration, can all be automated to save time and cost and to eliminate errors by manual operations. And NEO also offers RESTful APIs for easy integration with your existing management software. And for the best of all, the NEO is free of charge. So as DataON and Microsoft Windows servers are simple to deploy, Mellanox also provides tools for rapid deployment of switch fabric. So if you go to our POC site at Mellanox store, with a few clicks to select the right configuration for your environment, a network bomb and an Ansible playbook will be automatically generated for you. So I provide the URL here for you to check them out. So to put things into perspective, DataON and Mellanox ran a test on a 4-node S2D3110 Hyper-Converged platform with Mellanox network adapter cards in the servers, RoCE offload enabled, and Mellanox Spectrum switch used for interconnect. As we're showing here, we achieved 3 million IOPS for this 4-node cluster with all NVMe SSDs and 40 plus Microsoft Hyper-V VMs per node. So built on Microsoft Windows Server, DataON Hyper-Converged platform is one of the best HCI solutions. And on the network side, Mellanox Ethernet switches and ESF eliminate the network bottleneck and unleashes the maximum performance of the DataON solution. So together with the high performance, fast deployment, easy to scale, and simple to manage, the Microsoft WSSD certified DataON HCI and Mouse ESF is or are the best solutions for your Microsoft-based data center. So this is a quick view of the Mellanox solution working with DataON and Microsoft. I will hand over to Sean for him to share his experience with us. Hey, Sean.
Hey, good morning. Thanks, Jeff. All right, so my name's Sean Leonard. I'm the Network Services Manager for Trident Seafoods. We're probably one of the largest companies nobody's ever heard of. We are the largest seafood company in North America. We were founded by a gentleman from Tennessee who basically moved up to Alaska and started as a deckhand on some of the fishing boats back in the 60s and saved up enough money to buy his first boat. And from there, we've grown from one boat to about 40, and we got about 40 vessels that we support, and then 31 locations actually now. We just opened a new one. Most of the processing locations are in Alaska because that's where the bulk of our fishing is done. Very, very remote locations, and many of those places are islands on the Aleutian chain. Let's see if I think we have a slide here that shows some of these spots. Most of the areas that you see here on the map, Akitan, Sandpoint, St. Paul, some of those places only have about 100 people in the village. Satellite internet, very expensive, very latent, and really the reason we're there is because that's where the good fishing is. So weather is a big factor for us. Oftentimes, if it's either fogged over or the winds are too high, aircraft can't fly into these places. So unfortunately, the only way to get to some of these places, if weather's bad, is to take a boat, and then you end up in 25-foot seas and all the fun seasickness and good times. Not exactly what I had planned for when I got into IT. But so the bulk of these locations, we don't have any IT staff on the ground. So really what we're dealing with when we have support is working with either an electrician or maybe the office manager. So not to discredit them, but these are not technical people by any stretch of the imagination. So basically we were looking for a solution that was easy enough for us to walk the commoner through troubleshooting. We've been an IBM shop for now Lenovo, I guess, since before I started at Trident 16 years ago. Our typical scenario, as we've grown through the years, we kind of went from this traditional model where we had a standalone server that was maybe running a couple of roles with a domain controller and file and print. As Hyper-V evolved, we started leveraging Hyper-V fairly early on, started building VMs, so the workloads became a little bit more diverse. And we went from having a standalone server to having 2 servers on site for redundancy with Hyper-V replica, and we would basically replicate the VMs between the 2 servers in the event that there was some sort of catastrophic failure. Because of the remoteness of these locations and weather, everything's managed from Seattle, and if we have an incident at these sites, we can't even get to the plants. Sometimes it could take up to a week depending on the time of year. So we really needed some built-in redundancy, and so Hyper-V Replica provided that for us. The problem with Hyper-V Replica that we couldn't get around was it still requires manual failover in the event that something should go wrong. And we could probably ask, I saw somebody's comment about watching Deadliest Catch. Yes, actually.
That is really cool, Sean, because clearly you're very famous in a lot of TV shows.
A few of our boats have been on that show, yes. And they oftentimes offload in Dutch Harbor or Akitan, Alaska plant. So yeah, Deadliest Catch has been phenomenal for the Alaska seafood industry. It's funny. So anyway, so Hyper-V Replica did require some manual intervention. So basically, as we've evolved with, as Microsoft's virtualization platform has evolved. We've leveraged more and more of the functionality. So I kind of knew going into this next hardware refresh that I didn't really want to maintain the status quo that we've largely had done the last couple of refreshes. I wanted something to be a little bit more automated. I was looking at clustering and things of that nature. In full disclosure, we do use Nutanix in our data center here in Seattle. We leverage VMware. We use Hyper-V. We do a lot of we leverage a lot of different technologies. So when I initially started pricing this out and looking at solutions, some of the main things that we needed was something a little more automated. So failover clustering was kind of the next logical thing that I was thinking we should leverage. We knew that we wanted to get rid of spinning disks. Obviously, these locations are fish processing factories. The largest facilities we have process between 1 million to 2 million pounds of fish a day. So it's an incredible amount of fish that gets processed at these locations. The concept of a data center in these locations is basically it might be a cabinet in the back office. They're filthy. I wish I had smell-o-vision, but you guys would probably regret it. It's basically machinery and dead fish. If you can put those smells together, that's how everything is at these plants. So they're filthy. Another reason why we wanted to try to minimize moving parts, with the amount of dust and debris that's kicked up in these plants, the servers were just disgusting. It still amazes me that some of the equipment runs as long as it does in these locations. So, in addition to failover clustering, no spinning disks, the remote nature of these sites and the limited technical staff, we knew that we needed something that wasn't going to be too difficult to manage. When we started pricing this out, we did shop Nutanix. We did look at Lenovo's offering with Nutanix, and the pricing, obviously, there's a premium with that solution, because in addition to buying that, you still have to buy the Windows license that you're going to run on it. And then when we started thinking about managing it, the last thing that, for anybody who has any experience with Nutanix, it's a great product, but it is definitely more complex than leveraging Windows servers. Trying to walk an electrician through logging into PuTTY and shutting down CVMs and clusters and whatnot was a thing of nightmares that I didn't want to have to deal with. I can't remember if I said the internet service at these places is largely satellite based, so it's highly latent, 600 milliseconds of latency on a good day, and the throughput that we get is about the equivalent of a T1. So it's very slow, highly latent. It's not something that we can easily manage remotely, but we have to, there's no other option. So we started shopping around, like I said. The process of trying to get quotes and pricing was really frustrating, to be frank. It took quite a while. I had seen DataON at Microsoft Ignite, actually I think going back to TechEd in Houston a few years back, and I remember seeing the Storage Spaces Direct presentations at Ignite last year, and I was very intrigued because coming from a background with Nutanix and having that in our data center, I was thinking that might be a good fit for our remote branches. And so after kind of pulling my hair out waiting for quotes from other providers, I literally went to DataON's website at about 7:30 in the morning. I had a response back from Ben. He had set up a demo for later that morning, and I had quotes by 4 o'clock that same afternoon. So within 6-7 hours of contacting them, I had a fully fleshed out solution and pricing on it. So that was the first big plus for us. I guess I should update this, walk through the slides, because sorry, I'm used to talking, not presenting. So some of these are things I've already covered. We already own data center licenses, and that kind of gets back to Nutanix and VMware. You know, even though you might buy into those solutions, if you're running Windows on it, you still have to buy the Windows license. So the nice thing with this solution is you buy data center, and storage space is just a function of that. So it's a really good solution. Windows Admin Center has been pretty cool. I messed around with Project Honolulu. I haven't gotten into Windows Admin Center as much yet, but that's actually on my to-do list. Let's see if the next slide here is it going. Yeah. So this is what I've already. Whoops, skipped ahead. What I already spoke about. The product quotes that we got from other vendors, a lot of them still leveraged spinning drives for storage capacity, and we're generally not storage heavy. The thing for us is being able to leverage NVMe and just no spindles was huge, and the price on the NVMe SSDs was phenomenal. So the solution we have, it just screams. I can't be more happy. The problem we had with the servers our older servers that are probably about 5 years old that we're refreshing, when we originally priced them out, we didn't take into account the number of VMs that we were going to start adding to the storage. So trying to run 15 VMs with like 3 SQL servers on 10,000 RPM drives was terrible. So this solution's been fantastic. So far, so good. We've deployed 7 locations right now. We have 3 more to do, and yeah, so this is getting into our solution. Hardware, I mean, you guys can read the specs. It's pretty straightforward. In a perfect world, we probably would have gone with a 3-node solution, but cost is a thing, right? Everybody's got budgets. So we kind of did a poor man's cluster, understanding that file share witness is not it's not the equivalent of having a third node. But again, when you start talking hardware costs and then Windows Data Center licensing costs, that third node equates to, you know, $15,000 to $30,000 depending on how you price it. Whereas the Intel NUC cost me about $600. And for us, it's good enough. Not best practice probably for production environments, but it's been solid. So these are some stats I won't get into. Basically, it's fast. So I guess the biggest things that we encountered in going through some of the setups, a couple of the guys on my team, they had mis-IP'd or misconfigured IP addresses on the RDMA NICs in our solution. And let me go back a couple slides to the architecture here. So the RDMA NICs are basically cross-connected. So we have 10 gig, 2 10 gig networks. One of the gentlemen on my team who, I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he's a little junior, so he just didn't know. He had actually labeled these or numbered these as 4 separate subnets, so he had like 192.168, 9, 10, 11 instead of 8.1, 8.2, 9.1, 9.2. So basically the RDMA NICs weren't talking to each other at all. I'm surprised that the cluster even survived that, but it did, so that speaks to some of the resiliency, I guess. So the virtual disks is another piece. Because we're only running a mirror, we have 2 virtual disks. And ownership, you obviously want to run your virtual disks on the, say volume 1 is owned by node 1. You want to make sure that those writes are going to that local server, whichever node owns that virtual disk, if that makes sense. Because you don't want to have it writing across the 10 gig channel all the time. So basically, if whichever server owns the virtual disk, make sure it's owning the local disk, not the remote one on the second node. So cluster-aware updating is huge. That was another thing that got missed by one of my guys. He ran Windows updates on the cluster, but didn't do it through cluster-aware updating. So basically, the one node rebooted and the cluster freaked out. Fortunately, it survived, but so that's another little point. And then one other small thing we encountered was because we're using an Intel NUC. If you're running an Intel NUC with an i5 or i7 processor, vPro's enabled on that, and you can do some remote KVM stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't realize that, and we bought some i3 processors that don't have that capability. So when the machine goes off, there's no way to remotely start it. So if you go into the BIOS, just make sure it's always on in the event of a power loss. Yeah, so it's been a really good solution for us thus far. DataON's been awesome to work with, and yeah, I guess if anybody has any questions at the end, happy to answer them. I'm going to pass it on to Howard.
Hey, thanks, Sean. I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. Clearly, even though we didn't know you beforehand, a lot of people do know you because of the TV series. So it's good. You guys are famous. I'm glad. Guys, we have about 8 minutes left. I'm gonna not gonna spend that much time. I'm gonna probably leave 5 minutes for Q&A. So I'm gonna flip through these slides quite quickly. If you guys have any questions, reach out to us, and we're very easily accessible. And email us and call us, and we can talk to you. I think a couple takeaways. There are quite a bit of selections as Windows 16 S2D continue to take mainstream. We have a different type of platform for you to scale based on your workload. So depending on your requirement workload, DataON is quite flexible to help you guys design the solution that works for you. So definitely visit our website to look at all the product portfolios. The second piece is clearly a 2-node Kepler as a starting point has been a really good solution for remote offices, robos, and even for small businesses who does not have the budget to scale to 4 nodes. With 4 nodes, you have a switch that comes in play, and it could have some complexity on networking. So a 2-node solution has been a really good solution for Windows as a way to start and really get yourself acquainted with the Storage Spaces Direct and all the awesome features that comes with it, with failover, HA, and everything else. So do consider 2-node as an option as you continue to evaluate your solution for your company. Okay, let's flip through these slides. We also have different variety of 2 nodes, form factors, workstation, 1U, 2U. So depending on your capacity of workload, you have choices. I think one last slide that I want to try to leave you with is as you continue to evaluate your workload solution, we always ask our customer to make sure you look at your workload applications, especially the more heavy hitter like SQL. Make sure you understand your virtualization layer, how many hosts, how many VM you need. That really will determine your VM and compute requirements. We cannot stress the importance of networking in a hyper-converged infrastructure based on Windows, making sure networking is set up properly, configured properly, and making sure you understand how the fabric works, both from the east and west traffic and the VM traffic perspective, will be critical to your deployment and success. Lastly, really understand what kind of architecture you want to use, hybrid, all-flash, 3 tiers. So taking these into consideration will help you guys tremendously as you guys go down in your design for your HCI. I'm going to flip through these. I think Daniel talked about it. We're very excited that our product MUST is part of the Windows Admin Center extension. And as a company, as a Windows shop, we fully embrace everything that Microsoft really introduced. And we really want to make Windows Admin Center as the foundational platform for all our customers as well to manage their S2D cluster. Because we believe that there's a lot of great features that we're not going to go develop, but Windows definitely have it. So definitely start trying out Windows Admin Center now. I'm sure there's more stuff coming in 2019. flip to these slides. Last slide, I just want to let you guys know that, again, there will be a Windows Server Summit on Tuesday, 26th. Definitely leverage this opportunity to learn more about what's going on, what's coming up, especially coming with Ignite in September, where DataON will be there. And we'll have a good booth, silver booth, and we'll share all our technologies. So definitely register and attend this Windows Summit. So we got 5 minutes left. Great attendance, thank you. We'll do some Q&As. I think a couple questions we'll start off with. We'll start with Daniel. So Daniel, as people continue to evaluate Windows Admin Center, one of the questions is, does it work today with 2016, or do they have to wait for 2019?
No, it completely works on Windows Server 2016. So Windows Server 2016 is completely supported. For the new features that are coming in Windows Server 2019, 2019 is still in preview, so it's insiders. But the management UI for these new features will most likely be enabled within Windows Admin Center. So for new features in Windows Admin Center, in Windows Server 2019, definitely use Windows Admin Center for those. And some of the new features are available already as a preview version. So this is the time to try it out and send us feedback. And we're continuously improving, releasing new updates pretty much monthly, so we'd love to hear your feedback.
Thank you. And for Jeff, I guess the one question was, you talked about Neo.
Right.
Is there any plan for Mellanox to look at integrating Neo into Windows Admin Center?
Sure. I mean, that's our plan. So today, I mean, we have not made that prototypes yet, but we do work, with Microsoft and Howard with your team, integration with MUST. I mean, these are on our future, roadmap. Hopefully, can come up very, very soon. In the meantime, I mean, Neo is a software can run on any kind of VM, so it's easy to deploy and all that. But I think you should hear from us very soon with the integration to MUST and Microsoft Admin Center.
Thank you. So to close for Sean, I guess, if anybody have questions about your experience, can they reach out to you and you could share your experience with them as well?
Yeah, for sure. And I saw there was one question about using VSAT-based systems for vessel connectivity.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we have leveraged VSAT. I think Inmarsat, VSAT, KVH. We have so many boats out there. We've used them all pretty much.
Excellent. Hey, thank you, Daniel, Jeff, and Sean for supporting this webcast. Great turnout today. We'll have all these recorded, so anybody that want to go back to BrightTalk and our website to look at it. Thank you very much, and looking forward to seeing you guys all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.